let me give you a warm welcome. And also let me thank, before we start, the speakers I'm honored to have worked with. I will introduce them in a few seconds. When we were reasoning on how to plan this session, we decided that maybe the most useful things could have been to give you some practical tips. So we decided to focus on the practical side of the story and introduce you to the mechanisms that are behind the successful application, hoping that when you come out of this session, you will have with you a baggage of knowledge and competencies that maybe will lead you to a successful future. So the engineers that will describe to you these mechanisms are our distinguished speaker that I'm going to introduce. Dr. Juliane Sauer. She's the president and the founder of Oxygenium, which is a consultancy company that is based in Switzerland. And this company is dedicated to researchers, but also to research institutions, and helps them with applications within the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions. But besides that, Juliane has been a national contact point in Switzerland from 2008 to 2016. So she has a very big knowledge on the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions. And she also coordinated the Net for Mobility project, a network of national contact points. Another distinguished speaker we have is Brian Booth. He holds a postdoc on computing science, and he was really successful in IF application. He now has a postdoc at the University of Antwerp, and he had a score of 96. So a very, very successful application. He is willing to share with us his experience and to give you some nice tips for you to be successful as well. And last but absolutely not least, we have Professor Peter Jan Gunz, who is an associate professor at in physiopharmacology at the University of Antwerp. Besides having a strong academic background, he also worked in industry, and he has been also a research manager and led a lot of European projects, and led some successful application of MCAA ETN. He also will share with us what he learned during the course of the numerous applications he made. And in the end, my name is Maria Antonietta Buccheri. I am a scientist living in Italy. I am a former Marie Curie fellow myself, but within the FP6, and I was an early stage training fellow. I now teach genetics at University of Catania, and I'm the Secretary General of the Marie Curie Alumni Association. Well, when I had to prepare my presentation for this session, I went to the Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions website in order to look for some inspiration, you know. And I decided to go to the testimonial page. And I took the first 20 testimonials that I found, and I created a word cloud. And what impressed me is that the most cited words, well, beside Marie Curie and research, of course, was different, because the Marie Curie Fellowship brings you to a different environment, so a different perspective, maybe, on your research and on your career. Prestigious, it's a prestigious fellowship, everybody highlighted that. But also, it's an opportunity for your career. And some fellows were saying it's finally a dream come true. What personally I like most in the Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions is that it is dedicated to researchers, to people. And as you can see here, contribute to excellent research by equipping researchers with new knowledge, skills, international and intersectoral exposure to fill the top positions of tomorrow and solve societal challenges. And indeed, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions funded up to 110,000 researchers up to now, and the budget has doubled in Horizon 2020 compared to the beginnings in FP4. And I had a look at the full report of the evaluation of these actions, and I found that 92% of fellows holding a Marie Curie fellowship were able to be employed after the fellowship. So it really makes a difference in your scientific career. But another thing that I like very much is that the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions are also about developing your skills. And still, if you look at the report, this policymaker interviewed said that the most important aspect of the program is skill development. And you can learn a lot of skills through the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellowship. As an example, maybe this way is better. You can learn, these are tables referring about the skills that were learned to a large extent. So 64% of the fellows stated that they learned the presentation skills, public speaking and communication, which is very important nowadays to bring society close to science. But also they learned a lot of skills in project management, which is useful for the future, and proposal and report writing, which is useful to secure your funds for the future and for your career. Well, there's always room for improvement, even in the Marie Curie actions, which is entrepreneurship was not appraised so well. And also intellectual property rights. But skills are so important that in the work program of 2018-2020, there is an optional training for all the fellows, and the Commission is planning to train researchers on skills necessary to face the challenges of tomorrow. So open data, data management, responsible research and innovation. So there's a room to improve really your portfolio of skills, but you have to describe which are the skills you wish to learn. So you have to know where you want to be in your career after this Marie Curie fellowship. And we are going to make some practical exercise in order for you to learn how to describe this part in your application. Besides, what is important also in your application is to describe the impact your researcher is going to have on society. And we will also afford this part during the practical exercise. So the outline of the session will be as follows. Dr. Juliane Sauer is going to introduce to you all the technicalities about the application. So she's going, thanks to her experience, she is going to explain to you how to deal with all this technical part. Then we are going to have a brainstorming session and practical session in which you will make practical exercises on the skills part and on the impact part. Brian will share with you his experience, and Professor Peter Jan Guns is going to lead us to the conclusion, sharing what he learned during his process to his way to successful applications. So now I leave the floor to Juliane, and please enjoy the session and learn as much as you can.
Thank you very much, Maria Antonietta. Just give me a second so that I can show you my presentation. It's short, but we thought it makes sense to put that at the beginning. These are scientists I'm speaking to, and scientists need hard facts, so this is what we're beginning with. So, let's have a look at the hard facts. Yep. Not very scientific, I started at the end. Anyway, you are sitting here because you're interested in obtaining an individual fellowship. And you're probably already an ITN fellow, so an ESR. Maybe you already had a try at obtaining one of these fellowships. First thing, what is it? Oops. There are individual transnational fellowships. So as within all the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, if you want to obtain one of these, you have to move. You have to geographically move from one country to another. The career development has just been mentioned by Maria Antonietta, and this is really it. It's not only about research. This is about you as the individual researcher who wants to advance in their career. And then also hinted at by Maria Antonietta is, how do you get there? You have to get some training to develop your career. So always keep that in mind for now, for today, when you're sitting here and listening to this. And then in spring, when you start writing the fellowship, always keep this in mind, because it will come back. It is reflected in all 3 evaluation criteria, and it's very, very important for the impact part that my co-speakers will soon focus on. Before you start writing, make 2 things really sure. You have to be eligible, and there are 2 things that you just have to get 100% right. Check yourself. You have to be an experienced researcher when you apply. The reference date is the end of the call. I will give you the timeline later. And by that date, it's somewhere in September this year, 15th or something, you either have to hold the PhD or you have to have at least 4 years of full-time research experience. Holding the PhD can mean something different depending on the institution. For me, in my case, it meant it also had to be published. In other institutions, it's fine. You can call yourself Dr. Sowieso when you, I don't know, submitted the thing and it went through the defense or so. But you have to hold it. If in your institution it's required to hold a title to also publish it, and you handed it in and you had the defense, but it's not yet published, you are not eligible. Make sure that you are eligible. There are no exceptions. For the 4 years of research experience, sometimes people ask me, well, I don't yet have the PhD, but soon I will. But I worked for 4 years at the university full-time as a researcher. That's fine. Sometimes people, I don't know, had a break in their career, or they worked part-time for 8 years, 50%. If it adds up to the 4 years of full-time experience, then that's fine. Again, the European Commission, when you apply, your project goes through an eligibility check before anybody looks at it. They count the days. I've been talking to the people who were doing eligibility checks, and they told me heartbreaking stories of people, well, 2 days are missing, they're not eligible. It might seem very cruel, but this is, they have to set a date, a limit someplace. So this is it. On the other hand, if you're not yet eligible for the call this year, there will be a similar call next year and the year after. Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions fellowships have been a success story, and they will continue. So even if in 3 years you think, now it's time to apply, I can assure you there will be such a call. So, this is one rule. The other one is the mobility rule. When you want to apply, you have to move from one country to another. And you cannot remain in the same country. You only can go to a country where you have not yet been, resided, or carried out your main activity for more than 12 months in the last 3 years. There is a slightly more flexible rule, modified mobility rule for the career restart panel. They take into account if a person did something else for a couple of years in another sector, or was on parental leave or something. But again, this rule, it's absolutely strict. The eligibility check people, they count the days. And if they have questions, you have to be able to prove that you haven't yet been in that country. Of course, you can you can take a vacation or so. That won't count towards this, but all the rest counts. So check if you're eligible. That's the first thing. There are 2 types of fellowships. Seeing that we are right now here in Europe, I suppose most people would be interested in a European fellowship, but one never knows. So the idea is either you come to Europe or move within Europe. You go from one country to another in Europe for 2 years. It can be a little bit less. It can be 1 year. My personal advice, after having been so long in this business of fellowships, would be always apply for the longer duration, for the 2 years, unless your project really only is for 18 months or something, and it wouldn't make sense to have it longer. Research always takes longer than you think it does. At least my research back in the day always takes longer. And should your project be really very fast and you are finished after 20 months, you can always shorten it, but you can never, never extend it. Unfortunately, the European Commission will never give you more money. So be wise, be smart, apply right from the beginning for the 24 months, and you're on the safe side. Either you move within Europe, or you have the idea right now, well, let's say I might want to go to the US for 2 years, and then I will return to Europe for the 3rd year. And this is possible. It makes the transfer of knowledge possible. It helps you gain insight in what's going on elsewhere. It offers a lot of prestigious host institutes around the world open up for you. The thing is, you have to return. The 3rd year, the return phase, it's mandatory. It can be super complicated if you want to drop out. It's possible, but I wouldn't calculate it within. The idea here is you get paid by European taxpayers' money, and there should be an added value for Europe. So you gain the knowledge outside of Europe, and then you go back so that the European research area can benefit from you, the excellent trained researcher. For all these, just keep in mind, you have to be an experienced researcher, and the mobility rule counts for both. Yeah. Here, for the global fellowship, what you have to know is you have to have right from the beginning both host institutions. You will apply together with a host institution. You can't do it all on your own. You have to say right from the beginning, for the first 2 years I go to the MIT, and my return host would be University of Zurich or so. And it has to be including a letter of commitment and everything. You cannot apply without informing your future host institution. That is, you can. I've known the case. The guy even was granted the fellowship. And then it turned out my dear colleague from HR at CERN called me and said, we have a fellow and we hadn't even the slightest idea he applied. You do not want that. Do not do that. Because back then the supervisor said, this person didn't even contact me beforehand. I don't want him now. You will have to write this fellowship together with the supervisor, ideally. We'll see later that that can be very, very beneficial, and it's helpful. So you have to know the host institution for the global and for the European fellowship. How does it work? The researcher applies jointly with the host institution. The host institution then recruits, formally employs you, the researcher, with an employment contract. And the global fellowship needs to provide a letter of commitment for the host institution for the global fellowship. There needs to be a letter of commitment. They don't directly get funding, but in case you carry out something that is very cost intensive, there can be agreements between both host institutions. You will get a salary, and I'll come to that. And it's quite fixed. These are the rates that are fixed in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions work program. It is guaranteed that you will not get less, but you maybe some institutions are very generous and they say, we really like the fellows, we want to give them even more. I'm living in Switzerland, it's stupidly expensive. Some institutions say, we still want these fellows, they are so important for us and they bring a lot with them. But in order to make it possible for them to actually pay for an apartment there, we even top up the fellowship. So you can ask at the host institution, depends on the country, some do that. What are the rates? You would get a living allowance. This goes via researcher month, so for every month that you are on the fellowship, of 4,880 euro, a mobility allowance that shall allow you from time to return home, and a so-called family allowance if you have a spouse or if children are depending from you. This is what you would get, which will be translated in your salary. However, you get a recruitment contract. That means you have a good and stable position. On the other hand, it's very likely you also have to pay tax. Income tax or the social security costs are deducted from this. Make sure you calculate this once before you actually, that you don't get a bad surprise. Also, these rates, the living allowance is always multiplied with a country correction coefficient. For some countries, it might be slightly lower if they have lower living costs. For some countries, it might be slightly higher. Then, there's also the unit cost of research and training costs, 800 euro per month. That can be used for, I don't know, to pay for your bacteria that you would need for an experiment, or for the use of machines or whatever. Also to attend conferences, to buy books. And then there are management and indirect costs. It's also a unit cost, 650 euro. That goes directly to the institution. The other one also goes to the institution, but you can use it. And make sure you are aware of this, because this is one of your rights as a fellow. You have access to this funding, and your supervisor would not be allowed to say, well, I want this to pay for my books. This goes to you. The next call opens on April 12th this year, and the deadline is on September 12th, 2018. I don't yet have that memorized, but it's going to be very similar dates for the next year. How long do you think do you need to write the fellowship in order for it to be successful? I want to hear something. How long? 1 year? Somebody else? 3 months? Okay, somebody else? 6 days? Please don't do it in 6 days. 1 year. 1 year is good, because then you will need time to contact suitable host institution and supervisors. Sometimes the supervisor says, in principle, I'm interested, but right now is not a good time for me. I can't take somebody on to mentor or tutor. It takes time, so it's smart to prepare early on. 3 months, I would say, is the writing time. And of course, you write something like 10 pages, and you think, oh, 10 pages, I can write that overnight. Yes, but every single line counts. These fellowships are insanely competitive. You have to have something between 93, 94 points out of 100 in order to be successful. It can be that you are the genius who manages to write the thing successfully overnight. I don't doubt that. On the other hand, you will need information from your host institution, from the HR there. You will need to fill in some information on ethics assessment. These things just take time. 3 to 5 months, that's the very least, I'd say, but it's smart to prepare much earlier. This is the budget. There are a couple of different panels there. Most go to the simple individual fellowships. For the career restart, for research integration, it's for people who want to reintegrate back into the European research area, and then simply for the scientific and technological panels. Most of the budget goes there. A little bit of the budget is reserved, 8 million euro, for the scientific and enterprise panel. Your host institution does not have to be a university. It can very well be a company. And the success rates, if you go to a company, are much higher than for the others. So keep that in mind, but it has to be research still. And then for the global fellowship, 45 million euro. The good news is your fellowship, once you wrote it, it will be evaluated by other researchers in the field. It's a very, very good peer review process. So you can be sure it's not Brussels administrators who evaluate the whole thing. No, it's actual researchers. And you assign yourself your proposal to the certain thematic panel that you are working in. And that the European Commission needs that so that they can find the right evaluators. And the cutoff thresholds, so the score that you need, 92%, 96%, every line counts. And in the past 10 years, this has always been higher and higher and higher. The European Commission raises the budget, and there are even more researchers to apply. So you have to be very good. Just a short glance at the 3 evaluation criteria. I don't even know if you can read that. You don't have to read that all in all. But these are the evaluation criteria. They are the same all over Horizon 2020, a little bit different than in the subtitles. Excellence, the actual research and training in your part, 50%. Implementation, the very last one, how you manage the project, what you are going to do when, your Gantt chart, 20%. And the big whopper really is impact, 30%. Everybody hates writing it because nobody knows what to write there. That is normal. This is why you're sitting here in this session. And you can be very, very good here and very good here. If you're not good here, you will not have the fellowship. The impact treats different things such as communication and outreach, impact on your career, and some other things that we'll soon tackle. And another good news is you are not alone out there. Grant writing is hard and it's a lonely business and nobody really likes it, and that's normal. But there are people like the national contact points in every country. You can turn to them. They most likely have something like a writing guide or a tutorial or a seminar or training. Then there's a project, netformobility.eu. On their website, there is even more. There are checklists. There are interpretation guides of what you should write and how. A list of events that maybe are open to researchers, webinars, all these things. And very important also are the practical implementations of moving from one country to another. Your access, also a service by the European Commission, will give you help there. So you're not alone in it. And also many, many institutions in Europe by now have EU project offices, or somebody who's specialized in helping you. And go get that help. Do that. It's for free, it's for you. People are usually, they are delighted to help researchers. They want you. So my conclusion is really, these IFs, they are a brilliant chance. People typically are very happy with them and they say, yes, it makes an impact, but you will need some preparation. But the fact that you're sitting here early February for a call that's not yet even open, it's very promising. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Julianne. Hello, everyone. So we'll start with the more interactive part of the session right now. So what I'll ask you guys to do is to get into groups of about 4, and it would be good if you group with people from a similar field. So to do this, maybe we can sort of organize ourselves with, the more pure sciences on this side, and the more applied sciences on this side. So if you're in mathematics, physics, chemistry, engineering, maybe you're over on this side, life sciences, social sciences over here. And once you've moved, find the 3 closest people to you and make a group. And we'll begin. So once you've made a group, if you could come and take seats near the front here. guys looking for a group? Oh. So we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Got 2 over there, maybe? Or actually, there's just 2 of you. Yeah, maybe 1 here, 1 over here. Yeah.
And then go ahead.
All right. All right, looks good. Let's begin. So this part of the session is on the impact section that Julianne was mentioning earlier. And the reason why this is such a big part of the Marie Curie fellowships is because of this sort of funding cycle. You're dealing with the taxpayer money, and that money is being handed out for a reason. For example, here, maybe to fund some medical imaging research. So there's a reason why that money is going forward, and it might be because of the research itself to improve healthcare. It might be an economic reason to spin off this research into a company and have that company have a positive impact on the economy. Or it might be for training purposes, making you more skilled, more knowledgeable researchers, makes you more likely to get more money, but higher salary in the future, and that gives more taxpayer money back into the fold. So there are many possible reasons why governments give out funding for research. And it's good to know what reason we're dealing with here in the Marie Curie projects. Because if you know why this funding exists, then you can write your application in a way that shows that you are accomplishing the goals of the program. If you do that, then your application has a better chance of succeeding. So for the Marie Curie fellowships, the goal is not secret. There's a document on the website called the 2020 Horizon 2020 Work Program. And in there, you'll find a few pages about the objectives of the Marie Curie individual fellowships. And there you'll find this statement, that the goal is to basically diversify your individual competence through skill acquisition, advanced training, and experience in different sectors and in different countries. So that's a nice high-level goal. It's also broken down into various steps, various expected outcomes of the program. And it's that which we will go over in this session. So we got you into groups of 4. In your groups of 4 or 5, you're going to choose one applicant. Could be any of you. That applicant's going to be your case study. And through this process, we're going to look at how you can get your applicant to address the concerns and the goals of the Marie Curie Fellowship. So I'll let you guys take about 4 or 5 minutes to decide on an applicant. And that applicant, you introduce yourselves to your group. Maybe talk about a little bit about where you are in your career, what kind of research you do, so that we can build off of this going forward. So take a moment to do that now. Hello, guys. separate person. If you're okay with it. That's fine. Actually, that would be more exciting to have something that's not typical. Okay, so your name is? And where are you? Okay, have been for. So, okay, so it is the preservation part working with preservation. So for the Mary Sue, let's narrow it down to, or maybe what you're working with. But you are working on a project there. So what is the project? Okay, working for social change. So are you developing you're developing what, a platform, or are you developing a course? Will the application talk about cover what? I know, but I think, okay, that's okay. Technology. Okay.
Are missing the next step, so they
Uh,
don't.
ah,
So maybe it's better to briefly introduce,
okay.
or maybe.
Well, this is just an introduction,
Yeah,
so there isn't really
yeah,
a
okay.
step. So,
All feel start with.
okay. Now let's move on to the next. All right, so you all have an applicant picked. Show, if you're an applicant, raise your hand. Let's see you. Got applicant here, an applicant there, there. Who's our applicants over here? You have an applicant? Okay, we got an applicant. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. We've got our applicants. Your applicant is going to be applying for an individual fellowship, and here are a few of the things that the individual fellowships are supposed to accomplish. First group of points is on skill acquisition. So at some point in your fellowship, you're going to be developing skills that you don't currently have. And the idea is that as you develop these skills, you'll become better researchers. And as better researchers, you'll be able to contribute better to the research community, particularly in Europe. So in your groups, I want you to help your applicant out here by trying to identify, what kinds of skills they could work on, how they'll develop those skills, and why those skills would be important for their career. And I'll start you off with a question that you might want to ask, which would be, where does your to the applicants, where do you see your career heading? Depending on your choice of career, you're going to need different skills. So how about we start the discussion there? So in your groups, let's begin. You're the applicant, yes? You're the applicant, okay. One of the skills that you might be developing.
Management skills like managing PhD students, managing supervision, and also like learn to manage how to organize conferences. And yeah.
Okay, so management skills, managing students, organizing conferences. Yes, if you're going to become a professor, very important skills. Yes, over here. Who's our... Okay, what skill did you develop in here?
I think I would like to develop networking skills, because one thing is research is not only yourself. You need to collaborate with lots of people. So you need to know the other people, what are they doing, and you need to try to also collect all the resources together and then to develop your own research.
Yeah, networking skills is definitely a big part of this. That's where you get your next opportunities, obviously. Okay, good. Yeah.
Maybe just a follow-up question on that. So if you say I want to develop networking skills, well, 99% of all the applications will say, I will also develop networking skills. So be very specific on that. So the next question is, how will I learn them? Will I have specific courses available at university? Will I go to conferences? Or will I be actively participate to the organization of conferences? These type of things. Will I maybe develop a type of alumni association at my university for the Marie Curie Fellows? Just a few ideas, but this make it much more specific. So that's one of the key things, I think, be specific. These Marie Curie proposal, it's all about, everything is in the detail. So.
Yes, that's exactly the next part of what I wanted to say was the two main aspects of the skill acquisition that you really want to focus on is how are you going to learn those skills during the fellowship? That has to be laid out in a specific manner, but also be very specific about how those skills are important to your future career. So being able to say, I want a career as this. For that career, I'm going to need these skills, and those are the skills that I'm going to develop as part of this fellowship. Okay, good. So that is so these bullet points are taken directly from the Marie Curie work program. So if you can address these skills in your or just these bullet points in your application, that could make it a lot stronger. The second theme that is addressed in this impact, with regards to impact, is something called III. So that refers to international, interdisciplinary, and intersectoral mobility. Working in different countries, working across disciplines, working outside of academia or with partners outside of academia. So in your groups, I want you to take a look at these bullet points and see how you can get your applicant to address these in their application. Go ahead. Okay, so we're running a little short on time, so I'm gonna bring you all back here. So obviously a lot of discussion on different potential partners in terms of industry, in terms of other disciplines. And yeah, so maybe we'll just go around again and get a few comments from different groups. Over here, did you identify a group for your applicant, a discipline, or a potential partner that you could work with?
We are
still investigating. Okay, fair enough. So one of the reasons why you would look for partners in other disciplines and other sectors is that they want the transfer of knowledge to be improved. So that means not only, that means sort of breaking down these barriers between departments, between industry and academia, nonprofits, etc., and just making sure that the knowledge flows across these borders. And that works both ways. So not only are you expected to learn and develop skills, but you are also expected to transfer some sort of knowledge to the people that you're going to be working with in this fellowship. So I will probably move on because we're running out of time and just take a couple minutes to mention how I tried to address this. So this is my project called CADWalk that got funded. And so I come from a computing science background, and what I've been doing there is designing algorithms related to this computer-aided diagnosis topic. So you got a person, we take some measurement, in this case a pressure measurement that you see here, and we've been looking at ways of identifying what parts of that measurement appear abnormal. So it's been a lot of algorithm development. But really, if I want to make a career out of this, I'm going to need to get ideas and algorithms like this into practical use in a clinic. So that's what we've been working on as part of this project, is partnering with industry. If I can get my software packaged with the pressure plate, for example, that RSScan makes, then at least my software gets into the clinic and maybe gets used. But then I have to develop certain skills on intellectual property management, industry regulations, etc. And in my discussions with RSScan, they said, hey, we've got a customer who might be interested in what you're working on. And that's how we got connected with St. Martin's Clinic. And so they're part of the project as well. And with them, we're doing some data collection. And of course, we need ethics approval for that. So those are a couple of skills to develop there. And so we've got between sectors, because we've got industry, we've got hospitals, also industry in Belgium, hospital in the Netherlands, so we're across borders as well, and across disciplines because we've got computing science with medicine. So we've handled that triple I as well. And of course, an additional skill of actually managing this project with a bunch of people who, to be honest, have more experience than I do. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to have to do it by actually just doing it. So the last topic we didn't have time to go over was communication, especially with the public. So this is what I've been doing. I got a website, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. If you really want a detailed example of something that got funded, here's a place where you can look. So I'll sort of leave it at that. So the three main themes, making sure you show what skills you're developing, making sure you're addressing triple I, making sure you're communicating with especially with the public. And from there, I will hand it over to Dr. Peter Jan Gunz, and he will conclude the session for us.
Okay, thank you. So I realize we're running out of time, but still I think it's important to conclude with some general considerations or take-home messages, which are consistent or were also mentioned this morning during the career development session. And what was mentioned there was that quite a lot of PhD students have mental health problems, or mental health is becoming increasingly important. And one of the speakers there suggested we should also prepare our fellows for disappointment. Science is not about always going as smooth as you anticipate. And this is part of the story I want to bring. So writing a Marie Curie proposal, the way to success. Sorry. And just to give you the picture, so these Marie Curie proposals, it's really competitive. You can really compare it with this picture here. You have first to cycle 100 or 200 kilometers, and in the end, it's only one that wins. In Marie Curie, it's slightly better, but still success ratio around 10 or 20%. So competition is high. You really need to be prepared well. And I just want to share you some of my experience. So I've been research and innovation manager for the last 5 years. And that was mainly for Vision Lab. And Vision Lab didn't have any, so Vision Lab at the University of Antwerp, and Vision Lab didn't have any experience with European projects at all. And we just thought, well, let's start doing that. And in 2017, we were successful. So we had an individual fellowship, Catwalk, of Brian Booth. But we also got 2 European training networks funded, of which one, BQ-Minded, we really coordinated ourselves. So that was in 2017, so that really looks great. And it suggests that the way to success, it's just a straight line, and you have to start, and then success comes automatically. But I just want to give you a few insights on how to achieve success. Just going to. So what people all think, it's this straight line. What is then important? Has anyone a suggestion? Well, indeed, you are here. So the first step is just believe in yourself. Start with it. Yes, you can. Quite often, just the European projects, the threshold for participation, especially for the larger collaborative project, is quite high. But believe in yourself. You can do it. Then the next thing, what we had to decide is, how do you participate? And most often they say, well, if you are new in the field, go to a few training sessions, and especially start just by joining a successful consortium. So join as partner and not as coordinator who does all the work. And of course, that's a smart advice. You can, if you have a good, oh, sorry, I can't go back, but so remember the previous slide. If you have a good coordinator who really is as a good house father, you can learn it in all safety, all the tips and tricks, how a good, successful consortium works. But over the last, or at the beginning of my career, when I was doing this job as research manager for 3 years, I was always had the feeling I was in consortia, rather in this position. So I was at the back seat, and someone was pretending that he was taking the lead, but in the end you were not going anywhere, you were just investing time, not as much time as by coordinating the proposal, but it really felt like a loss of time, because in the end all these proposals, if this is the scenario, are not successful, and you're ending up just here in these circles, and you need leadership to go out of these circles to the success. So getting started, I said in 2017 we were successful, and this is here 2014. At that time I was research manager of consortium, EGAMI, or the inverse of image, which clusters 5 research groups all covering medical imaging. So we believed in ourselves, combined our expertise, and together with 3 of these research groups, we applied for a call about novel in vivo diagnostic or medical imaging tools. So we said, yes, we can. And we came up with a brilliant scientific idea. We even had 2 companies on board. So it looked like we had a fantastic proposal at that time. And we were very happy that we passed the first stage. So it's just to show again here, this is the normal Horizon 2020 societal call. There were 400 proposals submitted. We were in the first 100, but then in the second stage, we failed on impact. How we interpreted it, was that our science as such was good enough, but our impact was not good enough. So we had to improve. Well, in fact, the reviewers didn't believe that by just having 2 small SMEs, we could bring our medical imaging technology all the way to the patients. So we would need bigger companies involved. So then the year later, we started again with the Marie Curie program. So the good thing there is it's a bottom-up approach. So any scientific proposal fits in. But of course, you really have to know what the proposal or the call or the program is about. It's about innovative training. It's about impact. So there we started also with a very scientific, innovative idea about non-invasive transcranial magnetic stimulation. Very fancy. We applied it in our Marie Curie European training network. The nice thing is that you really get scores in this Marie Curie, so you get some appreciation. But so we got a score of 85%, which means that you're approximately in the 40% best proposals. But of course, only the 5 from this ETNs, only the 5% best are funded. So it's really competitive. We worked very hard and resubmitted. And so we spent 2 months on optimizing the scientific program, the interactions between the partners, but in the end, it didn't improve. The key limitation there was that we just didn't have sufficient engagement from industry, so we didn't have sufficient interaction with industry. So on our whole network, we had 2 companies involved, and also our training. Well, it was just too generic. We just claimed that we would develop networking skills, project management training, but we didn't really explain how exactly we would do that. So at the same time here you see 2016, we also reworked or recycled our initial project in another, in a Marie Curie project. Also that failed, but there we still had the feeling that it was going up, so that there was still room for improvement. Nevertheless, it really feels like this. Often you fall off your bike, hit the ground, and then the question is, of course, is it still smart to continue? But given that there was still a positive learning curve here, so 90%, we thought, well, let's give it a final chance. And so we reapplied. And indeed, in 2017, we were successful. Moreover, we were not only successful, we were this time ranked just first of 400 proposals. I even submitted this proposal 1 week before the deadline, which made that I could even help another proposal, which was also granted. So once you know the amount of detail and hard work that needs to go into these proposals, you become successful. So here is the positive story. So, well, lessons learned, I think all of it has already been said, but it's about active career development. It's about outreach and impact. So impact, valorization of results, valorization for society or for economical benefit. So just to conclude, what are from my 5 years of project writing, what are the key messages? What I really would like to share with you. First of all, believe in yourself and be critical, but if you feel that it's not going the right direction, don't be also too shy. It's not that your promoter is always right. If you have a good idea, believe in it and go for it. Never trust on all the people around. Well, all the people around you can help you, but in the end, you're just responsible for your own. So do your best. Nevertheless, Also be prepared for disappointment. It will happen during your scientific career. Nevertheless, don't give up. Typically also these Marie Curies, it's quite common to recycle your proposal or resubmit the year after. So I think these are the key messages. Maybe just as a final remark, well, I would just say, so everyone can do it, and to demonstrate that, I have here my two lovely daughters submitting my ETN last month. So it's really fun, and you have to start early. I think my youngest daughter is still too young to really understand it, but my oldest here, she clicks while we are submitting the ETN. And to be honest, I'm quite confident this time that, so it's again the third year in a row that I'm submitting an ETN. But once you know what are the amount of detail, what the impact should be, then I'm quite hopeful for this proposal. So, and it's really fun. So now it's still excitement, but, or no, it's still a bit learning, but in the end, you will see it's absolutely, it's big fun. So here it's submitted.
Goed zo, duim omhoog. Is het een topproject?
So you're really, afterwards, it all looks fantastic. So with this, I would like to conclude. So keep in mind, never give up, but be prepared that might also be disappointed on the long way or by doing science. I think this is also one of the key messages. And I thank my co-chairs and you for your attention and wish you a lot of luck with preparing for your proposal. So good luck.